Hello everyone, welcome back to the Homeworld Remastered walkthrough. This is for Mission 5, The Great Wastelands Part 2. We have just gathered all of the resources we need to build our fleet, and now we're going to attack the Taidan fleet which assaulted our homeworld, try to get a little bit of revenge.
We have repaired the damage incurred by the tyrannic raiders. Combat and sensor systems returning to optimal functionality.
Our first hyperdrive test led to near genocide. Karak, destroyed. All of us, all that's left, hunted by 2 alien races.
We must focus on the matter at hand. Elimination of the fleet that destroyed our world. Coming up on hyperspace coordinates.
Just to talk about the cutscene a little bit before we actually get into the mission, the specifics. You can kind of see the compassion, the empathy, and the great humanitarianism that led to Karen becoming the fleet command, because she seems to want to focus on trying to mourn the loss of the civilization, while the other guy, who is our, I guess, main narrator, I don't think he ever gets a name, he seems to be more focused on just getting revenge, and I wonder if that is because he's trying to focus on the job to not have to focus on the fact that his entire civilization got destroyed, or whether he's just become so overcome with the need for revenge that that's all he can think about at the moment. Just an interesting thought. I kind of thought about it when I was playing the game again. But the mission. Okay, so we're here to try and track down the Taidan fleet, which destroyed our homeworld. However, the rocks and resources in this area are far too dense to actually scan through, so we have to send out probes. This is the first mission where we have to do probes. They are very, very cheap units. They move very quickly, have a huge sight radius. However, they are a one-trip unit. So what happens is, the first place you tell it to go, that's where it goes, and when it gets there, that's it. It does nothing else but sit there and scan. So you really want to make sure that you kind of have a good idea of where you want it to go before you send it off, because that's all it's going to do.
Ship profiles and markings match those from the recording at Karak. There is no doubt that this is the fleet. Destroy them.
So after sending the probes out, we see that the enemies have quite a good fleet of frigates and smaller ships, and they also have some destroyers and a carrier.
Probe in position.
These are capital ships, which are very hard to kill, obviously, and far beyond anything that you have built thus far. Fortunately, the enemy will be kind enough to send themselves in waves at your mothership, so you don't really have to go out and try to hunt them down. They'll come to you eventually. And the only reason to go out really is if you want to just speed up the process, or if you want to attack the resource controllers that they have, which the narrator is kind enough to suggest that you do in this mission. Also, something that they've done, but I haven't done variable testing to make sure, is they apparently have a kind of, I guess, rubber banding difficulty in this game, which means based on the size of the fleet that you have when you start the mission, the enemy's fleet and the enemy forces will be adjusted to kind of make up the slack, so that you and they are kind of on the same relative footing every time you play the mission. Like I said, I haven't tested it myself. However, if the fleet of 3 destroyers and a carrier and a whole mess of frigates is smaller or larger than what you have, then that's probably what's happening. You might see variable amounts of ships whenever you play. We also unlocked 2 new ships in this mission, the Plasma Bomber and the Defender. The bombers are actually really good. They're very, very good fighters against capital ships and the big ships that can't move very well. So that they're the kind of ones where I talked about, where even fighters and smaller ships can take down capital ships. If you have a bunch of attack bombers attacking a destroyer, for instance, they will win the fight. They're way too fast for their ion cannons, and if you have enough of them, you can take them down. The Defender, they're a small fighter that's kind of good against other fighters. However, I build them throughout the missions here as we progress, but I don't feel like every time I build them, I don't feel like they actually give me very much value, especially compared to other things I could have been building. Yeah, at one point whenever you engage capital ships in this game, the game will explain to you that the armor on the capital ships are stronger in the front and kind of weaker on the sides and back, so that you should try to attack at the sides and back. However, I've never really had a reason to do this. I usually I spend the whole game just running my ships at their ships and fighting them, because the only ships that you really want to position, I guess, would be the capital ships and the like. However, those are really slow and bulky and just hard to maneuver around. So very often, if you just go at their ship and attack it from the front and kill it, it's a far faster process than to try to position your capital ships around to the side or the back of their capital ships to attack them like that. It's a complete waste of time as far as I'm concerned, and I've never really seen any benefit or difficulty with the game that would cause me to want to do it. Now, I know I've been harping on this constantly, every single mission, but I have to say it again. Salvaging enemy ships is the best way to build your fleet. And since the game is just kind enough to have a couple of destroyers around, it is very worth your while to try and get the salvage corvettes to capture at least one destroyer. This is one of the instances where approaching from a certain angle is a good idea. What you tend to want to do for like destroyers is distract them with smaller ships, so they're attacking the smaller ships, such as frigates or something like that, and then you approach from the side with the salvage corvettes if you can, and they won't be able to the destroyer won't be able to turn around in time to face the salvage corvettes and really attack them, so that they can make a pretty easy capture. Destroyers and later in the game missile destroyers are ones that you really don't want the salvage corvettes just to approach from the front, because they will rip the hell out of the salvage corvettes and they likely will not survive the trip up to the destroyer to try to capture it. Anyway, you will have several skirmishes with their ships and the enemy fleet, and eventually all that will be left is the carrier. Now, the carrier, you can try and capture it, but I never capture enemy carriers. I think it's kind of a waste of time. I would much rather have other capital ships besides a carrier in my fleet. There is a cap on every type of ship. You can only have so many frigates and so many fighters and so many capital ships. And so I would rather have more destroyers than a carrier. So that's just my thinking on it. That's why I don't capture carriers. However, if you have captured a destroyer, the enemy carrier will be a cakewalk. It will be a breeze. There will be no problem to destroy the thing. Destroyers do so much damage, and carriers don't do as much damage. So even just sending like the destroyer by itself will probably not be any issue. However, as you can see, I sent the whole fleet of the thing just to make sure. Anyway, with the carrier destroyed, that's the end of the mission, and that is our revenge accomplished. Now, having no homeworld and nowhere else to go, the only thing that we can do is move on with the plan that we had when our civilization was still around. And that plan was to follow the star map that we found to the galaxy center to try and find what our civilization's initial homeworld was before we were banished to Carrick. So, with that in mind, our next mission will put us one step closer to our ancient homeland.